back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jumoke. Nice to meet you. I'm your favorite femininity coach and women's mentor. If you like videos like this, make sure to like, subscribe, share with a girlfriend, and also leave a comment with how this video has impacted you. What are your thoughts? And let's get the show on the road. So what are we talking about today, ladies? We're talking about why you have to heal from mother and father wounds in your femininity journey. So this is something that was kind of a blind sight for me in my femininity journey, because at first I was really focused on the outer transformation. Like I said in one of my previous videos about how I started my femininity journey, I was really concerned with the hair, the makeup, the clothes, the teeth, the nails, smelling good, things like that, which were good. It definitely did boost my confidence, but a lot of things were very unaddressed. Like it just completely flew right over my radar until maybe a few years into my femininity journey. That's when I started to tackle certain things when it came to my parental wounds, and also things in my culture that I realized were extremely toxic. Now, I was born in Nigeria. I was raised by two Nigerian parents. I was raised in Nigerian churches, Nigerian community, but I was also raised in America. So I share two different cultures. I share Nigerian culture, I share an American culture. And even in American culture, there was a lot of things in media that would tell me about who I was as a Black woman that affected me. And I had to unlearn and relearn a lot of things in my femininity journey. So let's get into it. Let's first talk about, what do fathers and mothers teach their children? So when it comes to fathers teach their children identity, okay? If you read the Word of God, Adam knew how to name the animals, but he also knew how to name Eve, right? He knew how to name his wife. So God has put it inside of a man to be able to name and identify a thing. A man who's operating in his masculinity knows how to name and identify a thing. So if you are someone who was not named and identified by your father, maybe that your father was absent in your life, or maybe your parents went through a split and you didn't see him as much, or for a lot of us who grew up in African households, I call it the aloof African dad trope. A lot of us had fathers that were present physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, they were completely absent and checked out, and relied on the woman to do all of the parenting. So that can definitely have an effect on us, and it's a form of trauma if you think about it. It's invisible trauma. And when you haven't been identified as beautiful, loved, valuable, successful, powerful, when you haven't been assigned these identifiers by a father, it can actually cause a lot of wounds. So usually people who struggle with father wounds, I would say 99% of the time, people who struggle with father wounds struggle with rejection, especially if it's not checked and it's not actually being dealt with. A lot of us can deal with rejection. Sometimes it doesn't look like rejection because other things can, in a way, gatekeep rejection, like pride and lust. So we might feel like, oh, we're not struggling with the rejection, but rejection attacks the identity. Okay, you feel rejected by your own father. You don't know who you are. So it's very common for people who struggle with father wounds to say things like, I'm confused, I don't know who I am. And maybe these are things that you may not say out loud, but things that you wrestle with in the back of your mind, or when you're going to bed, things that you think about in your mind that you're constantly struggling with, like, who am I? Why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? I'm confused about the next step in life. I'm confused about my identity. I'm confused about my purpose. If that is things that you struggle with in your mind, you may want to sit and check out, is this actually stemming from a father wound? So yes, so those of us who struggle with father wounds can struggle with rejection. Legalism/religion. I know a lot of people may not think like that, but kind of going into Christianity a little bit. If you struggle with father wounds, it's very easy for that to seep into your relationship with the Lord. So instead of priding yourself as a child of God, as a daughter of the Most High, you may put yourself as a servant before a daughter. And you may think your identity comes in how much you do for God and his kingdom, and how much you serve in church, and blah, 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 and how many rules that you follow. But it's not from a state of being. It's from a state of doing and not necessarily being. And that's really the heart of rejection. It's a lot of doing, not enough being. Okay? So if you struggle with rejection, yeah, you may also struggle with lust. You may struggle with addiction. All these things are things that you may try to find your identity in. Okay, so yeah, so if you don't understand who you are and what your identity is, you will try to find it in other things. So let's go into mother wounds, all right? What do mothers teach their children? Mothers teach their children value, okay? Value. This is so, so big. The way your mother valued herself is what is modeled to you and what you internally understand your value to be. So let's say, for example, if you had a mother that prided herself, again, in doing, and in a way in martyrdom, you have a lot of women, especially Black women, they think that the more they bend over backwards for a man and the more they tolerate, the more they will win a man's loyalty. But that is in a way manipulation, but also it's actually devaluing yourself. And men don't owe you that. Like it's hard to say, but it's like the more you do for someone does not make them value you more. What makes people value you and treat you at your value is when you understand your value, when you set boundaries and you set consequences based on those boundaries. When you have a strong just foundation, you understand your worth as a woman, that is actually what encourages and impacts people to treat you the way that you treat yourself. So it's not about how much do you endure and how much you tolerate. But again, if you see that from your own mother and everything revolved around your dad and what he wanted, your desire and his desires, and just again being a pick-me, then that may actually influence you and what you think you're worth. I may do a whole nother video about being a pick-me, because that's something that I fed into even when it came to culture and society. And y'all, I tried that whole pick-me stuff and it doesn't work. I did all that and guess what? I didn't end up with a ring. So who's winning here? Who's winning? So if you struggle with mother wounds, you may struggle with things like low self-esteem, worthlessness. You may have lack of boundaries, like I mentioned. You may struggle with a lot of shame and a lot of guilt. If you're someone who is a victim of manipulation and emotional abuse, and you may think everything is your fault, or you just may have a lot of shame attached to shame around your body because you think maybe your worth is in your body, that your value is in your body. So if you don't look a certain way, you have shame around that. You have shame around how accessible you are to other people. So when you're not accessible enough to other people, there's probably shame around that. Because again, you're trying to find your value into your body, your looks, what you do for others, what you do for men, and you just don't understand your value first and foremost. You may struggle with things like perfectionism and, just you can't make any type of mistake. You have to be perfect. You may struggle with low emotional intelligence. And that comes with, again, stifling your emotions, being overly pleasant, being a people pleaser, not being too anyhow, and just making people try to like you, fear of rejection, resentment, bitterness can come as a result from all those things that I mentioned. But yes, so these are the things that you can struggle with if you have a mother wound. And like I said, there's a lot of things within our culture. Maybe I'll do another video about it if you guys want me to make a video about how culture affects our femininity, then I can definitely do that. But yes, there's a lot of things that are toxic in our culture, toxic when it came to our upbringing. And if it's not addressed, we're kind of putting the cart before the horse. So yes, make sure you do take this into consideration. And if you're a woman that you are interested in embracing your femininity, healing from parental wounds, and you need more of a plan and you need more guidance in that, maybe you even want to position yourself for marriage so that you're breaking generational curses, then do schedule a discovery call with me, and we'll talk about how we can implement steps and strategies so that you can overcome these things. So until next time, guys, see you later. Bye.